Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Saturday Night Live and Rambling. I'm Clay, joined by lovely, gracious, and still remote E-Train. So we're
Hi,
glad to be with y'all
everyone.
again tonight. Hope everyone has had a good Saturday, good start to the weekend so far. Jane, Sky, good to see y'all. Let's see, Sky saying that she won't be chatting, and then she has to go to her phone. She said it's a Safari problem. We'll work with you on getting a new web browser installed and show you how to transfer all those passwords and all. Because we want you chatting. We miss you. Appreciate you being with us anyway. Jane, how the hell are you? Hope you're doing good. Um, been a little bit of a pretty peaceful day after the storm. As most of you know, Debbie kind of blew through here this week. Bunch of rain. The wind wasn't too bad. Little bit of flooding, but nothing horrible. So nice to see the sun out again, see things drying up a little bit. And apparently we've got another storm headed this way. I think it's going to curve up in the Atlantic, so it won't be a problem. But so far, it's pretty much on the same path as Debbie. So some people
Is
are saying keep an eye out.
is that the storm that swallowed the other storm? I was watching something. I don't even know where it was on the Weather Channel. Melissa, hi,
Hello,
honey.
Melissa. How are you?
And Jane is doing well.
Good. Good. Ellen is still broadcasting from one of our remote locations with the beast somewhere around. Hadn't heard them in a while. Did you drug them?
No, they're behind that door over there. It gets a little bit
Okay.
loud, and then the other two dogs start barking, and it just, it's just
Then the
better to
party
keep
gets
everybody
started.
in one room.
Well, cool. Before we get started, a couple things. I wanted to point out or update everybody. We have a community poll going on what movie will be the subject of the next movie club meeting. We've had about 70 votes, a little less than 70 votes so far, and it's real close between Princess Bride and Forrest Gump. Dirty Dancing coming in third. So if you haven't voted, go vote. I'll leave it open through the weekend, and we'll announce the movie and set the time Tuesday, which will be followed up by another community post.
I'm glad
So
you watched Mr. Megorium, though, Sky. It is a good movie.
yeah, Ellen plugged or wanted Mr. Megorium. Is it Megorium or Mr. Magoo's?
Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium.
Well, I had the title a little bit wrong. I had Magoo. So if you haven't voted,
Wait, that's
go
not what you
vote.
put on the poll, is it?
Yes.
Oh God. Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
so
Good job, Clay.
sorry about that.
Yep.
Well, never heard of it. And I thought, I had written down, I thought it was Mr. Magoo.
I sat
So,
there and spelled it out for you when you were asking me.
yeah, but the writing didn't exactly translate correctly. My bad.
Y'all see the respect I get, right?
Yeah. Um, all right, tonight we had some requests to review Bitcoin. What is it? How does it work? Why should somebody hold, own, or invest in Bitcoin? So we'll take a look at that. We'll look briefly at its claim to be money by establishing what we mean when we say the word money. We'll look at what problems gave rise to Bitcoin, how it works, and talk about its future a little bit. So Some of this we have alluded to or talked about in previous shows, but have enough new viewers, followers that, you know, the questions were coming up and thought we just try to clean it up and put it in a movie and maybe expand a little bit on what we've alluded to in the past. So
Hang on. With that being
yeah,
said, if you have any questions, if there is a term that you've never heard of, don't understand, most people probably don't, because Bitcoin and crypto is not, it's not the easiest thing to explain, and it's not the easiest process of how it's set up and what it does. So again, I will probably interrupt with questions. But please, if there's something you don't understand, pipe in. We'd love to hear from you. It makes us
yeah,
better at what we do.
and I'll go ahead and throw this out. Last week, you know, I apparently did not do a good job of communicating. Weren't a whole lot of questions, weren't a whole lot of comments. There was some feedback from some people. And I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for your for your honesty and, you know, sharing things that don't make sense or aren't productive to you. That helps me do a better job. And that's really why, you know, go to the trouble and do the work necessary for this channel, is because want to communicate things that are helpful, beneficial, and interesting. You know, I can't, we got our start kind of from LawTube. And I don't have, you know, in finance, you don't have the great drama, the personalities, the intrigue, the mystery, you know, you can't sit there and critique somebody's performance in court or in investing, because a lot of their conduct, their words, ideas, motives just aren't videotaped and available for review and discussion. But that being said, I think the goal is to transmit information that is valuable to you. And so in order to do that as well as I can, need your honest criticism, feedback, whatever. And so for those of you that took the time to give some feedback, I do want to thank you. It is much appreciated. And you know, this is I can't say new, I've been doing it for a year or two. This is a different medium for me, because I mean, I kind of grew up managing portfolios and trading. Wasn't a whole lot of teaching, communication, whatever. But I enjoyed it. Did some of it on the side, was asked to develop a course, started teaching, and that's kind of how I got started. Ended up then going and getting my PhD. But in a class, which I love, I get feedback. I can see the screwed up noses. I can see some of the confusion on people's faces. And I'll see, you know, kind of like sometimes eyes glazing over, whatever you want to call it. I get feedback. I don't get that here. So if you're not actively communicating with me, it's hard for me to know whether I'm doing things right or not, or whether there are additional questions, or whether I'm just adding to the confusion.
By the way, yes, there will be lots of flowcharts. I sent Clay about 15 diagrams to make it simple. Yeah, I was doing all the nose and the eye things when you were talking about it.
Yeah, some of them I will include. Some of them to me were more confusing because they had so many words in them. Now, I've been giving presentations, you know, in public professionally for decades. And, you know, some of the things I've learned is to keep your slides simple, not chaotic. Because if there's a lot of words, verbiage, whatever, a lot of numbers, big table full of numbers, people in the audience will be studying that, trying to read it, and not paying attention to what you're trying to communicate. So normally when I do charts or pictures or graphs or whatever, I try to keep them very simple. and then I explain the highlight or the point that I want to make. So some of Ellen's stuff she sent me, I have included. And again, all of it is greatly appreciated. If y'all have something you would think you see that you would be helpful, send it to me. My resources are not exhaustive. So let's
Sorry.
let's
A little bit of heartburn.
All right. We like hearing you chew. It's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as we go through this discussion, keep in mind the great art of learning is to understand but a little at a time. So this discussion is not exhaustive. It doesn't include every possible aspect. But the goal is to understand a little bit more than you do at the beginning of this video. So let's start off. Bitcoin's claim to fame is that it's money, and it's also the hottest topic of discussion about Bitcoin. So let's understand a little. Let's take a minute and look at what we mean when we call something money, particularly what we describe as hard money or soft money. What do these terms mean? As I do that, I don't know what happened to my screen. I was sharing it, but let's do this. All right.
Melissa, I'm going to keep this comment up there and just keep reminding Clay that throughout tonight.
Well, that's what I need y'all's feedback from, is if things stop being relatively simple. Understand that some of this is a little bit more involved, so we'll see what we can do with it.
I keep trying to remind Clay that not everyone has a PhD in finance.
In all honesty, I don't need reminding of that. I am fully aware of that. And even among some of the PhDs, I raise questions.
Yeah.
My problem is I've been talking and doing this stuff for 40 years. And so sometimes when I get to going or talking, I will use a term or an idea or concept that I have not previously explained, but it's just innate to me. So that's not that I'm assuming everybody's a PhD. It's just the native language. It's like the dialect you speak. You go into China and there are 150 different Mandarin dialects. Well, when you start in a conversation, you just naturally regress to your native dialect. So that is more the issue rather than any attempt to confuse you or whatever.
All right, sorry, go ahead.
Let's talk about money. Money, the need for money simply arose from the inherent difficulties of barter. Barter is just simply trading your, crops that you grow for somebody else's meat that they grew, or, some tool or something.
Okay, hang on.
The difficulty is in...
Show me the money! Sorry, go ahead.
That is business. The difficulty is in translating what an hour of your time is worth versus an hour of somebody else's time. And they're not always equal, as much as sometimes we might like for it to be. What's an hour worth of your time producing corn to someone that spends an hour of their time transporting it across the ocean, who needs a boat and, takes on, severe weather hazard? Now multiply that by thousands, tens of thousands of different goods and services, and by trading with people in different cultures. Barter makes trading extremely difficult. It makes trading services extremely difficult because Every transaction has to be priced, and you get into, all sorts of difficulties. So, money arose because there was a need for a medium of exchange, something that each person could realize the value of and then trade it as they wished for other goods and services. We call it money.
And that is because not everyone, I think, because not everyone who has a trade or a service or goods who needs a trade, service, or goods from someone else that may not need what they offer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, certainly. And that's the advantage of having money is, if you don't want something, there may be somebody else that does. And so obtaining your particular business at this moment isn't necessarily essential because there's a broader market to sell and reach. Everyone knows its value. And as long as it holds its value well, and that's a critical point, holds its value, it will be demanded and used widely. It's just a more efficient way of conducting business. Now, what characteristics does money have? Carl Menninger, father of the Austrian School of Economics, give him his props. Came up with what I think is the best definition of money, and he described it based on salability, the ease with which a good can be exchanged for the least loss in price. Again, that loss in price, loss in value, money holding its value, that is the most critical point. Well, he also described three characteristics of money: that it can be used across scales. That is, it can be divided into smaller units without losing its value. For example, for a dollar, 100 pennies, it can be divided into smaller units. And you can take those 100 pennies or 4 quarters and go purchase just as much as you can with the whole dollar. Scales. Space. You want to be able to transport money without loss of value. You can stick dollars in your pocket and go anywhere. Transporting. And then the third characteristic, across time. The most important value of all, the store of value, as it's known or described as store of value. Now, I alluded to the terms hard and soft money, and this really is a description of the ability of money to hold its value, hard versus soft. Hard refers to money that holds its value. It doesn't fluctuate or change much. Soft money is constantly changing. So you're really looking at terms that describe a store of value or something that is value destroying. A hard currency is not easily broken. A soft currency doesn't retain its value. You constantly need more of it to acquire the same goods and services. That's what we call inflation. And inflation is the impact of more money chasing the same amount of goods. More money chasing the same amount of goods. Now, these two charts, are showing the total supply of money, of dollars in the US. It's called M2. So looking at this upper chart, which goes back to, I want to say probably 1980. You can tell there's some interesting characteristics. You've got one slope here, which is reasonably slowly increasing. And the slope is the rate of change, the rate of growth in the money supply, the amount of dollars. And then starting around the mid-90s, you notice that slope increases some. Okay. And then we get to the subprime crisis here. There's some obvious vibration. And then the slope again increases. Well, you get to COVID. and this is this COVID area blown up a little bit. You can tell the money supply literally goes vertical. And then the rate of increase in the money supply greatly increases through 2022. Well, what happened in 2021, 2022? Inflation went to 9-10%. And that's if you believe CPI. I think CPI is vastly understated, the rate of inflation. And we've, demonstrated that before with like food. The rate of food inflation is given as around 24%. Well, took a basket of goods, what was it, 50 goods that'll be in an average grocery cart, and looked at the price in 2021 versus the price in 2024. And it was closer to 130%, which actually better describes my experience at the grocery store. We had examples of people with shopping lists online, like at Walmart, back from from 2020 or 2021. And they would tell it to buy the same list. And their rates of increase were 130, 140, 160% at Walmart. So, forgive me if I'm a little bit skeptical about the 24% total inflation in food, for example, over the past 3 or 4 years. But if you want to know what inflation looks like in a chart, the cause of inflation in a chart, that's it right there. Now, you'll notice since the Fed started cutting rates and began selling basically some assets off its balance sheet. Okay, just in case that's sounds a little weird, the Federal Reserve controls the money supply. And the way they do that is by buying assets like bonds, which pumps money into the economy. Or they will sell bonds, which pulls money out of the economy. So look at the direction of cash. If you want to know if the Fed is increasing the money supply, look at the direction of cash flows. So here the federal government was spending a ton. The Federal Reserve had to increase the money supply in order to pay for it. And that's when inflation got its start. Now, you'll notice since then, the money supply has remained flat or decreased a little bit, at least decreased for a little while. It's actually, if I blew this up, you'd see it starting to tick upward again. And we're starting to see inflation increase a little bit. Producer prices the last 3 months have been up 5% on average. We'll see if that continues. So,
what does this have to do with Bitcoin?
This is talking about money and inflation.
Okay.
So if you look at the money supply from 2020 to end of 2022, 45% of all the dollars in circulation were printed.
Right. I get that.
So huge inflation. This is one of the main factors or advantages of Bitcoin, in that Bitcoin, you can't pump up the supply. And keep in mind, as the money supply grew 45%, just ask yourself, did the economy also grow 45%? No, not even close to it. So you've got more dollars chasing the same amount of goods.
It's like we were talking about on Tuesday, where the government needs to print more money to do a thing, and they get the value. You can't see my cursor when the money's down. There you go, down there, right? And they spend it at the value of that amount of money, and then everything kind of moves down. As soon as they have done their purchasing, the money is getting back into the market toward the whatever. You know these terms better than I do. I suck at explaining this stuff, but and then when we're trying to buy things, the money then is worth less.
Yeah, most people don't understand that the government actually benefits from inflation. in several ways. One, you know, I'm going to repeat this again. Inflation is more money, more dollars chasing the same amount of goods. Well,
Mhm.
if there's $100 in the economy and the government prints another $10, well, nobody knows that because that $10 hasn't been out in circulation. So the government
Quote
can take
unquote.
that new money and go buy goods at the current price. Now, once that $10 is in the economy and circulating and starts chasing more and more other goods, that's when you get inflation. So by printing money, it is a way ultimately of transferring value from the people to the government. It transfers wealth from the poor and the middle class, particularly, to the elites, particularly the elites in government. So that's something that a lot of people don't understand. They think the government should be adamantly against any inflation because it hurts the people. It ultimately accrues more power to the politicians. Now, a good example of this is the rhinestones. And I've talked about this before, so I'll be real brief because I love these things. I really do.
I know you do, but your passion for them doesn't extend to the rest of the world.
Uh, that's just because they haven't heard it before. Because to know it is to love it. This big carved stone you see in the background of the picture here is actually money, or was back in the 1700s, 1600s, in one of the Pacific Isles on Yap Island. Well, this money had existed for hundreds of years, or possibly even longer. We don't exactly know. And it had held its value. The ownership of the money was actually of these stones was transferred at weekly town meetings where they would conduct exchange, and they were of different size, obviously different values. Well, a Irish guy was stranded on the island, shipwrecked on the island, and they produced a lot of coconut oil. And he thought he could make some money selling the coconut oil, but he couldn't entice the workers to produce more because he had nothing of value. They were content with what they had in their lifestyle. Well, O'Keefe came to understand about their system of money. And when he got back to Hong Kong, he got a large boat, some explosives, and he mined some of these stones. These stones are not native to the island. We don't know how they got there, which is a whole different story. But he mined some and took them back to Yap Island, introduced them in society. So he had an initial incentive to get the Yaps to produce more coconut. But as the stones became more available, the value of them started dropping. The value of the stones declined until eventually the rhinestones died as a means of money. So that is consistent throughout history. Supply and demand. Money has a supply and demand. I've also in the past talked about Rome and the fall of Rome, how it was tied to the currency. As more and more Caesars started devaluing this currency, they would take the coins, gather them all in. They had a certain amount of gold in them. He would take those coins and then increase the number by reducing the amount of gold, add more tin or other less valuable metals. So that's how inflation undermined the Roman economic system. The whole empire collapsed, and that ushered in the start of the Dark Ages, the death of sound money, the death of hard money, ultimately turned people into slaves. Taxes and inflation destroyed individual wealth, and more importantly, the ability to acquire it and pass it on to their children. So within a few generations of the fall of Rome, all were paupers unless granted titles and lands by the king. So how did the Dark Ages come to an end? Started in 1252 in Florence, a city I love. I think a city Ellen loves as well.
I lived there. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Loved
What
it.
did you love about it?
There. I'm sorry, I'm focused on Bitcoin. I'm like, huh? Okay. No, Florence, I love the people were great. Um, it's, a walkable city. You can go anywhere, just walk and get from one end to the other, get anything you need. The gelato was great. The people were awesome. The food was amazing. So yeah, everything about it I
Well,
loved. And I could
well,
get
when I was there,
anywhere in Europe pretty much within a day of train
yeah,
ride. And the
when I
art,
was there,
yes,
what
thank you. David is there, which is sorry, I forgot about the art, Melissa. I'm so sorry. I know. It is
Thank you, Melissa. Melissa will
he
make
kind
my
of put
point
me on
for
the
me.
spot there and I'm like, hang on, let me think about all the things. So
The art, the magnificent buildings, the church, all the great statues and
the Duomo,
buildings.
you mean?
Yeah.
I found a blue church. It was beautiful. I think I'm the only person that I know that actually
And how
knows
did
what that
these
means.
things come to be built?
People.
Well, what was the family?
Hmm. Mm. Mm-hmm.
What was the family that
Now you're asking me history. I can do art. I can do all the things.
the
Chat.
Medici?
Help Medici. Thank you.
We're gonna have to send Ellen back to Florence.
I know, right?
So
It was
they became
28 years ago. So I get a little bit of a break.
they became influential and wealthy because of Florence introducing hard money, the florin. They established Florence as a trade and banking center, and as their wealth and affluence grew, this created great demand for the arts and for education, paid for by individuals who'd gained the wealth. This ended up giving rise to the Reformation. I'm sorry, the Renaissance and the Reformation, which gave rise to capitalism and free markets. The rest is history. My point in this little digression is simply that money and morals are closely related. You can't have sound money in an immoral society or with immoral people running the government. You can't have free markets without honor, trust, and recognition of others' value and rights. As those values decline, so does the money, so does society. This changing worldview, the decline of society, the decline of morals in government, particularly in economic matters, is ultimately what gave rise to Bitcoin. In August of 2008.
What?
Yeah, you were but a wee lad at this time.
No.
August 2008, a guy by the name, or at least has become to be known as Satoshi Nakamoto,
Can you make that a little bit
registered.
bigger? It's hard to see.
No,
Yes, you can. There you go.
how's that?
Perfect.
Thing is, you don't really have to read it. It's just I'm just showing the paper. If you want to look it up, it's available or it's online. Satoshi registered the domain name bitcoin.org and created a website at that address, bitcoin.org. At the end of November, he published this paper, a white paper on cryptography, and he posted it on a mailing list at metsdow.com. he described a digital currency titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Now, if you read through the paper, I said you didn't have to read it, but if you read through it, you'll notice he constantly refers to trust-based model. Just keep that in mind. Now, Satoshi's goal was to create a financial system, a monetary system that did not allow cheating or inflation. How cool is that? It was a software code with a moral conscience, a code that is unchangeable, a code that is known, no secrets, no hidden features, a system that can't be defrauded, that in and of itself provides the trust. In addition, Satoshi, and I could talk for a while about Satoshi. Is he one person? Is he a group of people? There's a lot of confidence that he at least worked for the NSA. So whole different, discussion on that, but interesting character. We still don't know exactly who he or they were. But Satoshi at the very start pointed out the failure of the current system. And the way he did this was he embedded it in the code. This is called the Genesis block. This is the first block in the creation of Bitcoin.
Clay, what is a block?
A block is just a chunk of data.
And how does this chunk of data become currency?
We're going to get into that.
Okay, let me delay. It's coming. It's coming, guys.
So embedded, this is all the binary and hex code, which is quite uninteresting to us. What is interesting is this little comment. The Times, 03, January of 2009. Chancellor on the brink of a second bailout. What is he referring to? He's referring to the London Times, the headline, Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. With the introduction of Bitcoin, he was presenting it in diametric opposition to the current monetary system and pointing out its failure as a reason for giving birth to Bitcoin. So
fair enough.
That is, to me, kind of a fascinating aspect and kind of sets the tone for why Bitcoin. I can't really explain to you why Bitcoin without, some understanding of what is money, how inflation impacts that, that is ultimately a moral issue. And Bitcoin was devised to address that specifically. So, Bitcoin. And they have all sorts of criticisms of it. Well, how, ultimately, if you want to know something is any good, you look at the demand for it. And what is the demand for Bitcoin, or what has it been since its introduction in 2009?
Wait. We got to go back to how it became a thing before we get into the who needs it, wants it, has to have it, or in the reasons, right?
What do you mean how it became a thing?
I mean, I know you gave some explanations, but like we have a block. We have an article about the why, and now we have the market cap.
Yep.
How did we get from point A to point Z?
Well, we showed the beginning, and I'm showing you now some evidence of Bitcoin's popularity. How has it grown? What's the demand for it? Is it just a little nuanced software program running in the background that nobody wants, cares for, likes, has any interest in? Or does it have something to it that's worth further consideration? And so when I look at the growth of it, I say, yeah, there's something here that's worthy of our time and our consideration. Now, remember, when Bitcoin started out, it was at a fraction of a penny. 2009, 2010, it was fractions of a penny. So on this chart, when you look at the market cap is the total number of coins times the value of those coins. Total value of those coins. It's pretty much near zero. But you can tell somewhere around 16, 17, it starts lifting off zero. And then from there, it pretty much explodes to where right now the total market cap of Bitcoin as of this morning is about $1.3 trillion. So this is not a trivial issue or discussion. The price has gone from, in 2011, it was basically a nickel a piece to $61,000 this morning. So how desirable has it been or shown itself to be? Pretty damn desirable. So if it's desirable, what does it have going for it? Well, this is one of the charts Ellen sent me, and it's got a lot of verbiage down here at the bottom, but I'll try to shuck it down to the cob for you. 5 main characteristics. Now, if you want to read the detail here, stop the video and blow it up and you can read the detail. But the first advantage of it is what it calls irreversible. A transaction is irreversible. It cannot be hacked or altered. The reason it can't be hacked or altered is because the data, the transaction ledger, which we'll call the blockchain, is kept on millions of computers around the world. Now, why can banks, if you have a banking account, chances are your data has been hacked and is available on the dark web, or a lot of your data is available on the dark web. Bitcoin can't be hacked because, one, the data is on 1 million computers. So a bank keeps its data on one main server, one main computer. So if somebody is able to gain entrance to that computer, they can alter the data. With Bitcoin, the only way to hack it would be to simultaneously hack 2 million computers at once, change each at once, because the system is designed to, if one computer called a node shows different information than the other computers, it's automatically kicked out of the system and
Okay,
Bitcoin.
back that up. That's important because I know you're going to talk about nodes. A node is a computer, one of the many, many computers, okay, that is part of is it part of the ledger?
No, each one maintains the ledger. Each one has a copy of the ledger.
Not an entire
copy. And they
copy.
all have to agree. Yes, entire copy.
Entire copy of the ledger.
Yes.
So 2 million computers?
Yes, roughly.
Okay. Have an entire copy of the ledger of Bitcoin. And you're saying they all have to agree?
Yes. If one doesn't agree with the others, it's kicked out.
The whole node, or just
the whole node?
So that computer is no longer in the system.
Right. That's a pretty severe penalty for trying to change the data.
Penalty, yeah.
Because if you have an account, if you have Bitcoin in your account, it's all gone. Now.
Oh, so they also rob you of your ability to, or if you had Bitcoin on your Okay.
node.
Hang on your computer, and you're part of the system that holds all of the ledgers for Bitcoin. No, okay. Let me ask you this.
All right, let me give you this example.
Hang on,
See if we
hang
can
on. Wait, wait,
simplify
wait,
it.
wait. I'm going to forget it. ADHD.
Okay.
Hang on.
All right.
Okay, so once you, okay, solve the algorithm, we're getting there. Do you become, and you add the next piece of the ledger, are you now a node?
Let me delay that because you're getting into
Well, no,
things
no,
I
no.
haven't gotten to yet.
Hang on, hang on. Just answer that, and then we're going to get there, y'all. Seriously.
If your ledger, your list of transactions differs from other computers in the system,
Uh-huh.
you're kicked out. That's
Okay,
it. That's it.
but how do you become one of the computers?
You download the software, install it, turn it on, it downloads the ledger and updates itself in the background automatically,
So
continuously.
this is not about solving the algorithm and getting to add
No,
the chain.
no.
Okay.
This is just maintaining the books.
Thank you. Okay. Just making sure
Okay.
we're on the same page here.
No problem.
Because if my mind goes there, I'm sure somebody else's possibly did. And yes, Melissa, because I can't be the only human that thinks like this. We will post the graphics on the community tab. Yeah, absolutely. We will do that. So I'm going to go back to your simple is good
Okay.
and let Ellen ask her crazy questions.
That's all right. So the system is virtually impossible to hack or alter because it's on 2 million computers, unlike major banks who keep all the data on one main server, one main computer.
I'm sorry. The question. Who chooses the computers the ledgers are on?
For Bitcoin,
Yeah.
the owner of the computer, you just go to the here, let me see.
I know I'm annoying, but some of this stuff
Nope.
won't get answered unless I ask it like right now.
If you want to run Bitcoin, you go to bitcoin.org/en for English. It's in all sorts of different languages. Download.
Okay.
Download Bitcoin Core.
And what does that do?
Click that button right there. That's it. That's all you have to do. It downloads the executable file. You tell it to install.
Okay.
And then it begins the process of downloading the ledger so that you have a current copy of the ledger. And then it starts doing the updates and participating in the Bitcoin operating system, including trying to solve the algorithm, the problem.
So what is the benefit of doing this, downloading this, the Bitcoin Core?
Well, one, you support the system. Two, you begin mining. That's how you get a chance to earn Bitcoin. You're also, if you write a transaction, you receive fees in addition to the Bitcoin reward.
I heard something about that. That every time that,
You heard something.
See, thank you, Melissa. I heard that when you transact in Bitcoin, there's a fee every time you do it.
Yes.
Whether you buy, sell.
Yes.
Then you have to pay taxes on that.
On the fee?
No, on any of it.
No, you just pay taxes on any
gains.
On any gains, just like you do dividends from a stock.
Okay.
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 But in terms of how to do it, it's that hard. It's that simple. You click that, you download it, you give it permission to install. And the thing is, this core, this software, the core is just the name for the software. Everybody has, knows what's in it. There's no hidden surprises. There's no, place to hide anything. It's well established. The whole operation, the software, and downloading the ledger probably takes somewhere between 5 and 8 gigs.
Mm-hmm.
So it is not as cheap as memory has become. It's not terribly large.
Well, claim my memory ain't cheap. I'm just telling you.
Do what?
My memory's not cheap.
For your computer. So that's all you have to do.
Okay, and so it starts mining, but why? Hang on. Talk about mining first, and then we can get to, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Well, let me finish this page here.
Oh, come on. Chop, chop.
No. Second main point is it's a pseudo-anonymous. Now, people say you can get on Bitcoin and be anonymous. Other people say every transaction is public, and people are going, well, how do you do that? Well, basically, every account can produce encoded account numbers. And these account numbers, which, can change for different transactions, which we'll show you in a minute, don't specifically identify the account that originated it. But that is how transactions are identified. So you can see a transaction going from this one account to this other account, but you have no idea who the owner of that account is. So yes, all the transactions are public. Yes, there is some pseudo-anonymity available with it. Third, it's fast and global. It is fast. You can move money anywhere around the world in a few minutes versus days or even weeks using the current system. If you're in a remote part of, Mongolia, trying to get, dollars moved and converted into Mongolian, whatever, it may take several days or a week. Bitcoin, probably 5 minutes. The fourth one is secure. Did I mention secure? Your account is nearly impossible to hack due to the cryptography used in securing the accounts. And I'll show you what I mean in a minute. The security used in encoding the accounts. The only way to access somebody's account is if you steal their account number. Now,
we want to hear about the mining first before you go there.
Okay, I'm getting there. Patience, young lady.
I have none.
Bitcoin wallet addresses are between 24 and 36 characters and consist of both letters and numbers. Now they will start with either a 1 or a 3 or a BC1. And if I was going to tell you a Bitcoin address, it would be something like 1, capital L, BC, FR, 7S, capital A, capital H, capital T, capital D, 9, capital C, GD, capital Q, O, 3, capital A. You get the idea.
That was Clay's account number, y'all. So y'all go ahead and have at it.
Oh, that's only a part of it. And that's the public account number. If you just entered that in, you'll get nothing. Now, if you want to send money to that account, it'll work. But if you want to try to withdraw money from that account,
y'all try it.
It won't work.
Y'all try it.
Y'all feel free to try it. But, you have basically more possible combinations than you do stars in our universe. That's how difficult it is to try to hack a Bitcoin account. Now, if you're careless with your private number, we'll talk about public and private keys. If you're careless with your account number and, somebody has it, They own everything you have. They have it full access. But other than that, nobody's touching yours. Fifth one, permissionless. To move a regular currency around, you need permission from the government or the system. The bank, for example. Just ask Russia. They were kicked out of a lot of the international transfer systems like the SWIFT system. Well, with Bitcoin, there is no gatekeeper. Okay. You can access the system from any computer in the world or phone. Satoshi designed the system to work with flip phones, the old, cheap flip phones where
Are you
just
serious?
punch in numbers. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So with a flip phone and cellular connection anywhere in the world, I can access and move Bitcoin.
Can you all hear me chew, by the way?
No, but the smacking's a little annoying.
I'm a little bit hungry. Wow.
Just kidding. So with Bitcoin, nobody can stop you. You don't need anybody's permission to do any trade, transaction, purchase, whatever. So how does this work? Okay, this is kind of what Ellen has been a little bit more interested in.
How do you mine it?
This is another one of Ellen's picks, graphs. So how does what's the overview of how the technology works? You're on your computer, you request a transaction. That transaction is then broadcasted to the network. It's called peer-to-peer because it's computer to computer. You don't go through a central server or anybody. So you broadcast it to the entire network. The network then uses algorithms to validate the transaction to make sure the account numbers match up. A verified transaction, can be crypto contracts or whatever. Then the transaction is combined with other transactions in a pool and used to create the new block of data that is added to the pre-existing series of blocks. This series of blocks is referred to as the blockchain. You take a chunk of data. You take a chunk of data and you add it to the existing series of blocks. You had the Genesis block, then you had another block added. Then after that, you had another block added and another block added. So that's how the blockchain got its name.
So the blockchain is just a series of transactions that have occurred in a specific time period.
Right. Each block is a chunk of transactions that have occurred generally in the past 10 minutes.
Is that how long it takes to mine Bitcoin?
On average, yes. Sometimes it might be a minute, sometimes it might be an hour, but the system tries to keep it on about a 10-minute average time period.
See, okay, hang on. Yes, Melissa, that's what the first question I have for Clay was like. So you on one of the 7 doors, do you go out there and you just start picking at what? Don't get it. Now Jane says
all you do is download that core and it runs in the background.
But the chances that your computer of the 2 million are going to do that are going to actually solve the algorithm are slim to none, in my opinion.
Yes.
If you're a single human.
Yes.
Okay, hang on. I'm trying to get these comments and questions, and so you can explain. I'm lost. How do you get a Bitcoin? There are 2 ways, right? Moffitt?
What do you mean when you say 2 ways?
Well, you can mine it and you earn it. You can buy it. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
You can mine it or you can buy it.
So Melissa is getting her pickaxe And Jane wants to know, how do you actually get a Bitcoin?
All right. When you run the algorithm, when you install the core and it's updated the ledger, and then once it's got the full ledger installed, then it begins to compete in the mining process. And in the mining process, you've got to solve a mathematical problem.
You need to
Okay.
take that down and just talk for a minute, because that is
Well,
super confusing.
this is actually important to understand in how you mine. That's why
I
I've thrown this up.
understand. I'm
So let me cover this,
requesting.
because we're getting to mining, but you've
Okay.
got to understand the basics first. This is how a block is added. This is the components of a block. This is the header. Okay. Well, here's the Genesis block. We saw that. Well, after that, you have the next block. Each block has a section called the header. It's small. It's only 80 bytes. The header is just like your header on emails. You know, when you have an email at the top, it has the date and who it's from and, you know, all sorts of little information. There's a lot of information you don't see, but it's there. Well, this is the header on each Bitcoin block. It has the version. It has what we will call a hash of the previous block. Hash. Keep that in mind for a second. Then it has the time, the bits, and a nonce, N-O-N-C-E. This is short for number used only once.
Wait, stop. Yeah, I thought you said the nonce was the computer.
No, node.
Node. Okay.
Nonce is in the header. It stands for number used only once. And then you have the transaction root. This is the section that contains all of the transactions that have occurred, let's say in the last 10 minutes. And with each one of those chunks of transaction, there is one new transaction called the Coinbase transaction. This is the new Bitcoin that has just been created and is paid to the node who solves the problem, who wins the right to add the next block. So this is where new Bitcoin is created every 10 minutes.
Moffat, question.
Sure.
Melissa.
Oh, sorry. So I was looking at you thinking you had the question. So if you install the software on your computer and your computer solves the problem, you get the Bitcoin. Yes, you do. So,
And a lot of people have the reason that it's so expensive to mine Bitcoin. There are places that are warehouses that have thousands, thank you, of computers trying to solve it.
yeah,
Owned by one entity.
You can Google mining Bitcoin, and let me show you this other image. And you can get an idea of the size of some of these mining operations. You see each one of these little fans? That's basically a different computer. A computer that is specially designed just to mine Bitcoin. It's a extremely fast chip and enough memory and hard drive to store the code and the ledger. So each one of these is basically a separate computer or node running the Bitcoin core system. And this is just one miner, one warehouse from one miner.
The amount of electricity it takes to even run all those computers at one time is fucking ridiculous, by the way. Okay, Melissa. Wait, I know that. Damn, stop it.
Thank you, Melissa. I appreciate that.
We're getting there. I'm trying to break clay down into a simpler explanation human. I need y'all's help.
Well, if you want to keep it simple, you install the software, it installs the general ledger, and mine's in the background. If it solves the problem first, you win Bitcoin. Now, the details and all that, how it actually works, is what I'm trying to add to and describe also.
We'll leave
Because
that for
I
a little
think
bit
the
later.
process of mining is kind of fascinating.
I know.
So this hash, how is the blockchain unhackable? Well, it's this little hash. This hash basically takes the previous block and encrypts it and includes it in the next block. So you cannot go back and alter something in history without changing the value of every block afterwards. And we'll see how that works.
Okay, we got some questions.
Solving the problem. Let's see. So why is it worth it for an individual to buy Bitcoin? We could never compete with the supercomputers. Well, you buy Bitcoin to either conduct a transaction or just for speculation and investment purposes. You've seen the growth in terms of the price change. In terms of running the Bitcoin core, the software in the background, hoping to earn some of the newly minted Bitcoin, I would say the chances of that are pretty slim. So not impossible, but pretty slim. And the way the system is moving, the maximum amount of Bitcoin ever produced will be 21 million. Right now, we're about 19 and a half million. So all the Bitcoin that will ever exist will be produced by 2040.
And this is not crypto. This is just Bitcoin.
Yeah, this is just Bitcoin, which is a crypto. But after that, and increasingly so, we talked about the fees.
Mm-hmm.
These fees are distributed among people who are maintaining the blockchain. So right now, the fees are real small. So even if you're an individual miner, you still will get some of the fees. In the future, as Bitcoin's value continues to grow and the network stabilizes, you'll probably you'll be compensated enough to pay for your machine, a little bit for your time, your electricity, all that kind of stuff through the fees, even if no new Bitcoin is being created. There won't be the problem to solve anymore. It'll just be maintaining the general ledger. But that'll be closer to 2040 before that happens. Right now, the main value is in the mining. And obviously, it's big bucks. Now, to solve the problem.
Hang on, Melissa's got a.
Yep. So that's why there was so much energy being used by so many computers. Yes. But keep in mind that the places where the energy is being used are places where energy is very, very cheap. For example, Western China used to be a haven to Bitcoin miners because they have these hydroelectric generating dams, but they have no cities. So they were producing all of this electricity and it was just evaporating. Nobody was using it. So the Bitcoin miners located there and basically got free or almost free electricity. It wasn't being used for anything else. A lot of Bitcoin miners now are locating in oil and natural gas fields because they burn off methane. Well, you can take, you've seen one of these little cargo containers. They're made out of steel, 30 feet long, 8 feet high, 8 feet wide. And you can fill that with miners and a little boiler. and put it next to one of these methane burn-off points and use heated steam to generate, to propel a generator and produce electricity. So a lot of times in these oil or natural gas fields, you'll see these little cargo boxes stationed around, and they're using basically free energy. So, you wouldn't locate a big mining operation in New York City. The price of electricity is just through the roof. So the big miners are located in areas where there's an excess of electricity and they can get it very cheap.
Another one.
Jane. And yes,
No, no, no.
obviously,
No.
windmills and unicorn farts are great sources of electricity.
I about spit out my drink.
So the supercomputers mine for it, and you buy it from the supercomputers, and then you can use it in day-to-day life. Yes. So how cool is that?
It's,
Our electric bill this month was $268. That's with a 15 to 30% discount for a studio apartment. I don't think we'll be mining anytime soon. I was born and bred in Alabama, and I've been talking to some people down there who've seen their power bills double this past year. Just the hike in rates is crazy. So yeah, in a lot of those areas, nope, probably wouldn't be in your best interest to try to mine.
I mean, you can put it on your computer and just see what happens. But with all these other major computers, I mean, there's so much that's ironic here about the climate disaster, the Bitcoin, the mining, the things. I mean, it's like what's what and who's who. But yes, unicorn farts can run the system, I think, for sure.
Yeah, one thing that I thought I would show you, we're talking about all the transactions being gathered together in a block. Well, you can go to mempool.space and it shows you graphically these blocks being assembled. Each one of these squares is a transaction. For example, I can put my pointer on it. It shows you the transaction number. It was first seen 14 minutes ago, amount for a fraction of Bitcoin. It shows you the fee, etc. And I can do this for every transaction on here. So yes, I can see every transaction, but the transaction ID is 36 digit alphanumeric, and I have no idea who actually is behind that. But if I watch this for a few minutes, I can see new transactions added, the pool being resized, resorted. Here, this shows the amount of incoming transactions. I can look at the pools who actually is competing to write Bitcoin. For example, Foundry USA today has written 252 blocks. Each block they earn 3.25 Bitcoin. So each block they write is $200,000. So 200,000 times 252, you can tell the value of, why they create these huge warehouses. But this is who you'll be, competing against. Now we talk about the energy needed. This is the hash rate. The hash rate shows the number of hashes per second. And what you see here is 613 exo hashes per second. Exo hashes. I'm sorry, exa hash. EXA. That is basically 1 quintillion hashes a second. So that's 1 followed by 18 zeros. 1 quintillion. So that's what all these computers are doing, is trying to solve the problem by generating a new hash. Now, when we talk about a hash, we're talking about taking the previous block's hash, which is, a 36-digit alphanumeric code, plus taking the current block, the number of transactions, hashing those. When I say hashing those, think encrypting. Now, if you had a computer, you use, for example, zip to compress files. What you're actually doing is taking a block of data and encrypting it, encoding it, condensing it. And the zip system, the encoder, the algorithm, when it uncodes it, it will recreate perfectly the original content. Well, that's an example of hashing. And so you take the hash of the previous block, add in all the transactions in that hash, add in the timestamp and the nonce. You create a new hash. So that's how they try to solve the problem. And in order to win, this hash actually has a numerical value. And that numerical value has to be below the level of difficulty assigned by the Bitcoin core. Let me give you an example of hashing. Now, I created just using Notepad on my computer, a text file that only contained the words "Hello World!" exclamation point. That's it. That's all I typed in it. And then I wanted to find a variation of the encryption program, SHA 512. This actually is an encryption program written by the NSA that has a value smaller than 2 to the 240th. We accomplish this by varying the string, adding an integer value. This is where the nonce comes in, and incrementing the nonce. Then interpreting the hash as a long integer. Now, what does all this mean? I take the phrase "hello world," 0, produce the hash. This is the encryption. This is kind of like the zip file. And then I calculate that integer value of all this, of this hash. Well, it comes out to 2 to 252, which is higher than 2 to the 240th. So I take my file, my basic data, "hello world," and increment the nonce. I raise it from 0 to 1. I rehash it. And as you can tell, the hash is greatly different. There is utterly no relationship between this two. That's part of the unhackability of Bitcoin and generating these private and public keys and the hashes. Nobody can make heads or tails out of what the original content of this was. We'll calculate the integer value, and it increased 2 to the 255 power. I keep going. After 4,251 tries, I've got "hello world" to the "hello world." I've incremented the nonce, number used only once, to 4,250. I produce this hash, and my value is finally 2 to the 239th power. That's below 2 to the 240th. So if that happens, and I'm the first one to do it, I solve the problem. I win and earn the new Bitcoin. Most computers can do about 4 million hashes per second. Most good, relatively new computers. So when we talk about 1 quintillion hashes a second, you can tell that's a fair amount of work. Now, if you want to do this on your own computer to just play around with it, you can. Here's how you do it. It's very easy. Get Notepad if you're on a Windows computer. Just type in hello world. Save it. Now, on Windows, my directory is users.mof desktop, then the file hello world text. So I use the command certutil -hash file, and then in quotation marks, the path. After that, I list the hashing algorithm, SHA 512, and it produces this hash. Now, if I add 1 to the file, instead of hello world, well, I should have put exclamation point here. I have hello world exclamation 1. File instead of hello world.
Sorry.
I have hello world. So I simply add 1 and resave the file using the same exact file. So I re-enter the same exact command, and this is the new hash I get. And as you can tell, it's vastly different from the previous hash. Again, nobody can decode what the original message is or where the account came from.
I'm aware that I was missing a little bit of this. Is this after you download the Bitcoin software?
Yeah, we're talking about how it takes all the transactions and your nonce and your header and encrypts them. The process is called hashing.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, I just did an example on my computer. These are the actual results. This is the hash I got from a text file that just contained hello world. That's it. And then I added 1 to it. I incremented the nonce. Number used only once. Here it was theoretically 0, so now it's 1. Reran the hash. Okay, does that make sense?
And excuse me, you would just keep running this?
I would keep incrementing the nonce until, now each hash, let me go back a couple slides. Each hash, contains the hash of the previous block plus the header of the current block. The header contains all the transactions, contains the timestamp and the nonce. So I produce that hash. Well, that hash has to be lower than a value set by the Bitcoin core. System-wide, the algorithm will set the difficulty level. And so this hash can be converted to an integer, a number. And this particular hash converts to 2 to the 252nd 0.253 power. Well, the goal is 2 to the 240. So this exceeds it. So I have to increase the nonce, increment the nonce, rehash it, recalculate the integer, still above it. So I keep repeating this process. And I repeated it 4,251 tries until my hash produced a integer value less than 2 to the 240th power.
Okay, so this is something you have to continue to type in? Is it something that it can do automatically? Is this why there are so many? I'm sorry. I had 4 dogs staring at me taking a tinkle, so I do apologize.
No problem.
It's very unsettling.
Yeah, the core, once you start it, it does this automatically in the background.
Okay, there you go.
So once you run the core, I showed you the mempool, all those transactions that had not been written to the blockchain yet. Well, it will grab those, hash that data, then include the hash from the previous block plus the hash of the header, the timestamp, the version, and the nonce.
Am I the only
Hash
one?
all that.
Am I the only one confused by this?
All
Because
right,
when
let
you
me
say
ask y'all just,
hash,
well, I think I did this while you were gone. I explained like most people with a computer have used zip file
yeah.
to compress data.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hash. And if you have the right key, you're using unzip, it will take that hash and recreate exactly the original file.
And that's how you would become a node.
Well, that's once you become a node, that's what's going on in the background.
Okay, so
That's
you're
what
already
takes
a
all the
node.
energy. Yes. That's what takes all the energy is your computer's running at max speed trying to generate the average computer will do this 4 million times a second. So it is just back there hammering out these hashes trying to solve this problem as fast as it can go. That's what generates all the heat, takes all the air conditioning, takes all the energy to keep it cool, to run the processor, that kind of thing.
Okay, so now back in like, I'm dating myself. Back in back in 2000, it's about 25 years ago, almost 25 years ago. I had a friend that ran a server that the business that I worked for, our website was on that server. The server was in his house and he did all these different, hosted all these websites. And his electric bill just for doing that, right? He had maybe 1,000 websites, was about $1,500 a month.
Yep.
So I can't imagine how much electricity and cooling power, because just to keep the computers cool enough to run that was insane.
Yeah, you need obviously to keep those warehouses very cool. And if you'll notice when I threw up the picture of the miners, your computer will have like a little 2 or 3 inch piezo fan in it
Mm-hmm.
to help keep it cool. The miners will have an 8 or a 12 inch fan trying to really blow air through that thing to try to keep it cooler. I mean, it's like a little mini room fan, basically. So, yeah, cooling is hugely important. Energy is hugely important. So, does everybody reasonably comfortable with the hashing process, or did I confuse you worse? It's just
Any
like it's just
Bueller,
like running zip file.
but
You're
an
taking a big
extreme
block of
amount.
data, an extreme
Mm-hmm.
amount. You're taking a big block of data and shrinking it down in a smaller block hashing process. Bitcoin uses several different hashing processes, and with the key one being SHA 512, which was an encryption process developed by the NSA,
Okay.
um, which is our basic spy agency.
Mm-hmm. That's
Intelligence gathering
national.
agency. I should really say that, but they actually get involved in some other endeavors.
That is National Security Administration. For those of you who are unaware.
Yes. So hashing, does that make sense? Everybody with me on that? If not, I'll try to re-explain it. Now, when we talk about security, I've talked about hashing. Well, what exactly are the steps does that Bitcoin utilizes to hash information? You have your private key. That's the keys to the kingdom. That's how you access your account and your account knows it's you. It'll be, it'll be 24 to 64 digits, alphanumeric characters. And anybody with that can access your account. But nobody else should know that number. So how do you receive Bitcoin? How do you send money? Well, you take the Bitcoin program takes that private key and hashes it and produces another key that's undecipherable to other computers. How does it do this hashing? What makes this so secure? Well, here, for example, is a private key. This is the key to your kingdom. So the first thing it does is it converts this key into what is called, the first step is rehashing it into a public key. This is a one-way conversion. Then this public key is hashed using SHA 256 and RIP-End 160. So it produces this hash, which then is put through SHA 256 twice, 2 times, which produces this hash. This hash is then put through another encryption program called base 58 to produce this hash. This is your public address that you can give to somebody to receive money. If they have this, the only thing they can do is use it to send you money. That's it. And they cannot break this down and decipher your private key. Now, the idea, the latest that I heard as of a couple of years ago was that the NSA could reverse this process and end up with a private key, but they have to dedicate their one of their supercomputers to do it, and it takes 2 to 5 days. So you're looking at an immensely difficult issue that no regular company, corporation, individual, even government can determine your private key. That's pretty damn secure, honestly. That's what makes Bitcoin unhackable. Does that make sense?
What makes it valuable though? I mean, it's not a stock. It's not really a company.
Nope.
What is it?
It's currency.
It's just a
money.
Currency. Okay.
You can use it to conduct, and we'll look at that, its ability to conduct transactions in a minute.
Okay.
Let's start off actually with the first transaction. And this is, I just have to laugh every time I see this. This guy, Laszlo, was a hacker who had started, saw Satoshi's white paper and thought, okay, what the hell, I'll start running it. And so he had mined some Bitcoin back in 2010. And so he gets on this board where he offers to pay 10,000 Bitcoins for a couple of pizzas. Maybe 2 large ones, so I have some left over for the next day. I like things like onions, peppers, sausage, whatever. This ad was up for 3 or 4 days before somebody contacted him and bought him the pizza. Then he sent them the Bitcoin.
What was Bitcoin worth at that point?
It was worth, I don't know, 3 cents a piece. So this was basically $30 in Bitcoin he was transferring for the pizzas. But it was the first business transaction using Bitcoin. 2010, May 2010. Don't you wish you could go back in time? Buy this guy.
I'd be delivering pizzas like crazy, yeah.
All over the place. Because the current value as of this morning of that 10,000 Bitcoin is $610 million. Or 7.2 tons of gold.
What are the chances that the pizza guy actually kept the Bitcoin?
Very little. Here is the guy with his pizza and his 2 kids.
He's like, man, I just want some pizza.
Yeah, I successfully traded 10,000 Bitcoins for pizza. How cool is that? That's what $600 million worth of pizza looks like.
No, no. That's what, well, I'm thinking about today's value. That's about $50 worth of pizza right now.
Well, I'd be glad to take that $10,000. I mean, 10,000 Bitcoin.
Oh, heck yeah.
All right. Now you were asking, what does Bitcoin offer? It
Mm-hmm.
offers solutions. It offers solutions to security issues. There's no leaks of info. For example, if you have an account with a bank, they have all your private information, social security number, address, age, date of birth, all that kind of stuff, your income. That's never a risk of losing that with Bitcoin. No leaks of info. There's no third party that you have to go through that will demand your info to verify who you are. It's, some programmers refer to it as the God protocol. It knows everything. It knows. You okay there?
A bug just flew right into my forehead. I'm sorry.
It removes the need for trust. You don't have to trust the other party. You don't have to know the other party. Bitcoin, if a transaction is implemented, it will be verified and it will be executed. It removes the potential for inflation because you can't artificially increase the supply of Bitcoin.
But okay, let's just say, because I'm devil's advocate, you know this. If whom they ever who created Bitcoin decided they wanted to increase the amount produced, could they?
The only way to change the core, the operating system in 2 million computers is to get a majority of them to approve the change. So if you can't get 1 million, one computer to approve the change, the system will reject it.
Oh. Huh.
So everybody has to be aware of it and basically approve it. So most people now think it's going to be impossible to ever change the core because you could never get consensus.
Nothing's ever impossible. I've learned that throughout my life, if nothing else.
Well, can't say it's utterly impossible, will never happen, but it's pretty damn impossible. Pretty damn close to it. Sorry.
It's not likely at all.
Highly unlikely. So it removes the potential for inflation. The release date, the amount of Bitcoin, all of that is known. It's proceeding exactly on schedule. It's all hard coded. Bitcoin is extremely liquid, very low fees. You can transfer money anywhere, anytime from any computer. It's verified, cleared, stored in 10 minutes. Obviously, we've talked about it being unhackable. You can't alter the ledger because of that inclusion of the previous block's hash in the new block. If I went back 100 blocks and tried to change the transaction amounts in that block 10 years ago, well, you saw what happened to my hash when I just changed one letter, the nonce, incremented the nonce. The hash was completely different, right? Well, that same effect would occur if I went back and tried to change the data in a previous block. Every block thereafter would have a different hash. The system would know that and reject it. So it's unhackable. That was one of the brilliant design features that Satoshi included in Bitcoin. There's no altering of the ledger that is possible. So basically, what does Bitcoin offer? It offers you security, trustless, permissionless, immediate transactions with incredible privacy protection, ensures payment, and does it for an extremely low fee. That's why Bitcoin is in demand.
All right, we've got some comments and questions.
Okay. I can't remember my password. I could never remember all of that.
I know.
You know, there are possible ways to write it down and encode it so that only you know what it is, where it is. You break it into different parts. Whatever is good for you. So if memory is an issue, there are ways to store it reasonably safely. There's also a thing called a seed phrase. Let me call this up. Where is it?
Where has my information gone? Where can it be?
Well, here we go. The Bitcoin system has a word list called BIP 39, Bitcoin Improvement Proposals, where the name comes from. Here are the, how many are there? Is it 3,200?
Words?
There are 2,048 different words. And each Bitcoin account has a 24-word seed phrase. So if you write down your seed phrase, you can recover your Bitcoin account even if you lose the account number.
Ta-da.
So like a lot of people will write down their seed phrase. You have to put these words, spell them exactly correctly, get them in the exact right order, put this seed phrase in a lockbox or fireproof safe or whatever. And, you know, there are even little things you can do to the seed phrase. You could put them backwards. You could alternate every other word, whatever. If you're worried about somebody finding it, there's a lot of different little things you can do to protect your Bitcoin account. So you can use your private key to access your account. If you lose that or forget it, you can recover it by using your seed phrase.
All right, next question.
What happens in the future if there's not enough?
No, the one that's up there now.
Sorry. How do you get your money to Bitcoin? There's a number of different ways. You can, one, barter for it. I could give somebody cash. They could send me Bitcoin. There are Bitcoin ATMs all over the world. You can walk up to them, insert money, and buy Bitcoin. You can go through Bitcoin exchanges like Coinbase. Coinbase is a US registered exchange. It's relatively safe. And you wire money from your bank account to Coinbase and then buy Bitcoin.
And you can buy portions. You don't have to buy like an entire coin.
You can buy fractions of it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Each Bitcoin is divisible into 100,000 different units. So I can buy a Bitcoin for a fraction of a Bitcoin for 6 cents.
It's a very, 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 very
flexible,
small fraction.
Small piece. Yeah, 1/100th of 1,000. They're actually called Satoshis.
Oh, nice.
I can, trade somebody pizza for one.
That'd be
So
damn hungry.
yeah,
A lot of pizza.
there are several different ways to acquire Bitcoin.
Hmm.
What happens in the
Right.
future if there's not enough? Would Bitcoin be defunct? No, it's just we've seen the value of it rise from a hundredth of a penny to $61,000 today. Some people estimate in 10 years it'll be $1 million. I kind of think it won't take that long. There are no guarantees. I'm not making a prophecy. I'm just sharing it with you, what is happening, what some people, think will happen. What about your steel wallet thingy? I've got actually like a little
Key fob. No?
titanium,
Ah, excuse me.
little titanium card. It's fireproof unless the fire is over 5,000 degrees, whatever it is. And you can enter in your seed phrase in this card, all 24 of them, in whatever order you want. You can reverse it. You can do them, in different columns, however. So there's a lot of different ways to do it in case you're worried about somebody coming across it and being able to take over your account. Or you can just keep it in a lockbox again, safety deposit box. So it's like, anything else that's valuable, you have to be willing to take some precautions to protect it, because there are some people that will try to steal it, take advantage of it, whatever. Like I say, the account is unhackable, but if you don't protect it, if you don't protect your private key, if you don't protect your seed phrase, obviously it can be taken from you.
All right. Who wants to have a pizza delivery tonight for an arugula salad pizza? Melissa will deliver or ship for some Bitcoin. It's a pretty good deal.
I wonder what arugula pizza would be like if it shipped over 3 days, 2 or 3 days.
Now, I'm sure she will spring for overnight delivery and probably freeze it. I'm just saying. If I know Melissa the way I think I do, I think she could handle all that.
And she'll probably even be willing to do it less than Laszlo did. She won't require 10,000 Bitcoin.
Just one.
Just one.
Mm-hmm. I mean, am I wrong? And Melissa, she's worth it. She's got all kinds of animals she's got to take care of, and she is the best animal mama ever. And I think she deserves a Bitcoin for some pizza.
So good luck, Melissa. Let me know.
I'm trying, Melissa.
If somebody does pay you a Bitcoin, I want my my royalties for the idea.
Yours? I brought it up.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Well,
wait a minute. Jeez.
Now I love, I kind of love Bitcoin. I don't think that's necessarily any big secret, because I love the process of creative destruction. Creative destruction is how Joseph Schumpeter described progress, described basically free markets. The old technology is done away with. That loss may be painful to some people, destructive. But the new way, the new technology offers better, brighter future, more productivity, better, higher standard of living. It's kind of like sometimes we want to protect industries. Well, just imagine the United States if in the early 1900s, when the automobile was first being introduced, if it decided it was a threat to the horse and buggy industry, and so they decided to tax automobiles and regulate them so that they were virtually impossible to acquire and build, well, we would still, 100 years later, probably have the world's strongest horse and buggy industry, but we would be a third world nation. Just imagine all the jobs created by the automobile industry, the advances in society and living standards that were obtained by it. None of that would occur. We would still be pulling horse-drawn carriages. Now, I expect Jane to chip in here and talk about the Amish and say we might be better off. And I can't necessarily.
I don't disagree with her. Just saying.
There is some value to that, but otherwise, I look at the dollar as kind of an analog technology and Bitcoin as the new improved digital technology.
Okay, so Melissa, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Melissa said 1 Bitcoin is just fine. She will send the pizza to you. I'm sure she will. If you want it tomorrow, she'll probably freeze it tonight, overnight it to you. Not a problem. She wants the Bitcoin first, though. I do want to say hi to Miss Jane. I'm not going to say any names, and I would never. But she's got a special young lady staying with her as an exchange student. Just want to say hi and welcome.
Hope all is going well with you and the Amish. Now, Bitcoin has its critics. Well, let me throw this out first. One reason why I'm optimistic on the future of Bitcoin is just looking at the trends, constant new applications, innovations. We're seeing dozens of Bitcoin funds being created, which opens it to a whole new world of investors that haven't previously purchased Bitcoin. If you're interested in acquiring Bitcoin but don't want to go through the secret encoding or whatever, if you have a stock account, you can buy one of the ETFs. It's kind of like a mutual fund through your broker, be it Fidelity, Vanguard, Schwab, whatever.
Whenever I hear ETF, I always think NFT, and I'm just like, okay, which one's which?
This is exchange traded fund. So think of it as a kind of like a mutual fund.
Okay.
The ETFs don't need a manager and analyst because they're just buying the one asset.
Gotcha.
The futures contracts, there you can buy futures contracts on Bitcoins, all sorts of things. So there are all sorts of financial arrangements, standard financial arrangements that can be acquired. To kind of see what's going on with Bitcoin.
Sorry, pouring water.
You're fine. I thought I had created a link here, but apparently I did not do a good job of that.
That's all right.
But if you go to this link, cryptometer.io volume flow, you can literally see the amount of dollars.
I think you can actually copy that and stick it in a comment from your.
Let me see here. No, well, let me do.
From the PowerPoint.
If I click on it, it switches to the next one.
Well, so give me a second. Talk about something else and I'll put it in there.
Okay. Well, I'm going to just go there. CRYP MATE.
Okay, I almost had it. You copy that and put it in the thingamabobber?
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is kind of a weird little graph. Where am I? One day. Yeah. This is kind of a weird little graph, but it shows you the flows into different cryptocurrencies. For example, Bitcoin so far this day has had a flow of $62 million in new money going into it. And
Damn.
you can tell by looking at the graphs at the line, like that bold green line shows how much of it is in US dollars. At the bottom, I can't move my cursor because if I do, it goes off. But here, well, you can see it here. It shows euros going into Bitcoin today, 4.9 million.
Oh God, it keeps changing.
Yeah, wherever my cursor is. Here it shows euros, then it shows FDUSD, something else. JPY is the Japanese yen. So it shows you the different inflows into Bitcoin. These arrows out of Bitcoin, some people buy Bitcoin to convert into other coins like XRP. So out of the 65 million flowing into Bitcoin, 1 million went to buy XRP.
Really?
Yeah. Here
I've heard
is
XRP's going up.
Dogecoin.
Hang on, XRP's going up and it's pretty cheap. It's like a little over 50 cents.
Yeah, they kind of won a lawsuit, but it's still not one of my favorite. It's had some decent press. I'm just not sure long term how advantageous it is. So
But if you buy like $2 of XRP and it does anything with like Bitcoin,
you'll
will be
have
sitting just fine.
yeah, I don't expect that much, but we'll see.
You never know. But it's
You never
worth
know.
like $2 to invest and say, okay, let's do $2.
Okay. So this is, if you're interested in, is new money still going into Bitcoin? You can just go here and take a look and see it for the day, see it for the week. Well, you have to subscribe. Sorry about that. You can look at it in whatever time increments you want.
Can you post
1 day is free.
That link?
Yeah.
And then I'll put it on Rumble as well.
So there are all sorts of cool little sites to gather information on what's going on with crypto, with Bitcoin, whatever. Now, can you use Bitcoin? Well, only if you do business with AT&T, Amazon, Uber, Shopify, Travel, Microsoft, Tesla, Gift, Burger King, KFC, Pizza Hut, certain NBA teams, PayPal. There are tons and tons of retailers and online vendors that will take Bitcoin. Or, for example, you can use PayPal. And use Bitcoin and pay in dollars anywhere that takes PayPal. So the applicability of it for everyday transactions is simply growing. More and more people are using it. You've even got countries switching to it as a currency. Argentina, El Salvador, Venezuela's thinking about it. There are several African nations. So particularly those nations that have trouble managing their own currency or that have had problems with inflation. A lot of countries are switching to it. Some commodity trades. There have been several pilot programs run with purchasing oil. So you've got a lot of the BRICS nations that can't agree necessarily on what other currency to use besides the dollar that may end up using Bitcoin. So the thing about Bitcoin is that it can be exchanged at any time for other items of value or fiat currency. You can exchange it for dollars, for yen, for rubles, for yuan, for euros, whatever you want. There is no hidden fraud operating behind it, behind the transactions. There's, every transaction is public on the blockchain. There's no illusion of growth or value, but real growth and value. Some people have tried to describe it as a Ponzi scheme. Most of these people don't know, obviously, what a Ponzi scheme is. Because a Ponzi scheme depends on fraud. It depends on an inflow of new investors to pay off the old. And you can't exchange the shares of that Ponzi for anything else, anywhere else. The
'Cause it's not
value
worth
is being
anything, yeah.
manipulated. Yeah, the value is being manipulated. The growth is an illusion. So it's in no way, shape, manner, or form a Ponzi scheme any more than buying any other asset is. It is simply a medium of exchange that is increasing in demand over time. And the key point is that familiarity with Bitcoin doesn't breed contempt. It breeds desire.
I mean, I think
Oh,
anybody can see just how crappy the US dollar has become and how it is failing and falling, or value is. And something that is actually something that you can, I'm sorry, the dogs are barking, can trade, that has a limit, a ceiling to how much of it there is pretty enticing.
now, one of these critics, a well-known one, is Peter Schiff. I love this guy. He's kind of entertaining.
You can't stand
It,
him. Sorry.
in January of 24, he's been jumping on Bitcoin for a decade. Bitcoin has already fallen from 49 to just below 42. That's over a 14% decline. It could be a long weekend for Bitcoin. Gap is way down. It will be interesting to see how investors react. I doubt they'll hodl. HODL. That's a common phrase in Bitcoin world. It stands for hold on for dear life. That you buy and you hold it. Well, yeah, Bitcoin did drop to. Here's where Schiff wrote this prophecy of his. And here's what's happened to Bitcoin since.
I just want to give a shout out real quick to our Rumble people. I think we have more views on Rumble right now than we've ever had live. Thank you. We appreciate you. We love you to death. We're trying to kind of figure out all the things with the social media. And if you find this interesting, fascinating, if you have questions, you are more than welcome to type them in. I keep an eye on Rumble while we're doing this. So please don't be afraid. Don't be shy. Do the things. Share. We love you too.
Yes, we do. And we appreciate y'all greatly. We probably don't shout out enough at y'all.
Now, Melissa has a quick question.
How long until Elon comes out with Xcoin? I think he's too excited about Doge.
Still?
Oh, just kidding. He kind of teases with that every once in a while. Every time he posts some joke or comment about it, it jumps up. It's hilarious. But what I wish he'd do is come out with an X phone.
He did, and then he didn't, and then he's
It was
going
a fake.
to.
It was a fake.
He keeps asking about it though.
It's a fake account.
No, but if you actually went to the Tesla or X or whatever website, he was going to do a phone.
Yeah, the only one I've ever seen is a fake account. It has Elon Musk and his picture at the top, but if you look at the name of it, it's a weird name. It's not Elon Musk.
Oh no, I'm talking about the actual website.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, Schiff also, back in 18, said, don't make the mistake of thinking that buying Bitcoin below 3,800 is a bargain. Just because the current price is better than 80% below its record high. Bitcoin's price could easily drop another 80% from here. At 750, it would still be expensive. Like I say, I love this guy.
Oh God. I think PBD had him on, and I actually gave PBD hell for that because I was like, yeah, that's just a horrible person to have on your show.
So, yeah, he's entertaining.
All the wrong information, but PBD, you go for it,
honey. So let me ask you, what would you rather own? Gold or Bitcoin? Here is a chunk of gold.
Are you going to ask
And
me?
here is Bitcoin. Which one would you rather own?
Personally,
Yeah.
the gold.
Gold is quote unquote tangible. You can touch it,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't buy anything with it.
Oh, I bet you I could. You want to bet?
You want to take a bar and go to the grocery store and try to buy some bread?
Can shave it off.
Yeah, they won't do that because they would have to assay it and make sure it wasn't fool's gold. Make sure it was real gold. Test the purity. You'd have to weigh it to know how much gold. You'd have to have the price. Bitcoin doesn't need assaying. With Bitcoin, if there's electricity, you're gold. Gold, you need a truck and guards.
Yeah, but seriously, electricity and
Which
phone
one is it?
computer, easier to get rid of those things in the world than the truck and guards.
All right, well, let me ask you, if we don't have electricity, is gold going to have any value?
Yeah,
Nope.
why not?
I argue it won't.
Because
Because
people
you'll
have
have
always thought of
people,
it as an exchange.
you'll have, not all people, not everywhere, and not at all
Well,
times. We like it because it's pretty. But if there's no electricity,
right.
people will be more concerned about getting food and water.
Mm-hmm.
And they won't be willing to trade a can of food for a bar of gold unless they know the electricity is going to be back on soon.
Okay, then how about
The most valuable metal, if we lose electricity for an extended period of time, will be lead
damn it, you beat me to it.
in the form of rapidly moving little pills.
I was just gonna dag nabbit. Hang on, Clay. I'm gonna remove you. I already had this ready. I was like, dag nabbit.
We love our shiny objects. Yep.
This would be your
That would be
greatest.
the most valuable metal to own if we lose electricity.
You can call it brass. You can call it whatever you want, but there it is.
There it is.
Mm-hmm.
And, gold, its value hasn't really moved a whole lot the past 20 or 30 years. You can't say the same for Bitcoin. Bitcoin demand is going to increase. Gold, not so much. Bitcoin will be volatile, but over any modest period of time, the value blows up. The more governments that try to ban it, the more demand is ultimately created after the initial short-term drop. Among the top 10 countries with the largest share of crypto users are generally low and middle income nations such as Thailand, Nigeria, Philippines, South Africa, Argentina, Venezuela, El Salvador, Indonesia, Brazil. And like I say, Bitcoin is a relatively new technology. It has still got a hell of a future ahead of it. Now,
you know what time it is?
About that time?
Do you know what time it is? It's my bedtime.
I'm
gonna let you finish. Can I let you finish? And I'm gonna.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted.
Won't be too much.
Got me up super early this morning.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I know. I love you guys. Thank you for being here and hanging out with us.
You want some cheese with that wine? Y'all have fun.
No one saw that, right?
No one saw.
All right, guys. Night, night. Love y'all. And I will see you on Tuesday. Correct? Yep.
See ya. Good night. Now, I saw this today. Don't necessarily agree with it, but it gets you thinking. And so I thought that has some value. This guy, I'm not that familiar with him, Sony, basically stated Bitcoin is going to kill real estate investment. If you're a real estate investor, I think you should be scared of this fact. Your real estate portfolio is worth 100 Bitcoin today. I think it'll be worth 10 Bitcoin or less in 10 years, a 90% loss. And he just talks about Bitcoin increasing in value much faster than real estate. It does, it has, it probably will, but I personally don't think it will negatively impact real estate that badly or to that extent, because a lot of people just like real estate. They like owning land. The old adage is they're not creating any more of it. Before long, you'll be able to say the same about Bitcoin, though. But there's just, some satisfaction to owning land. I think people will diversify into Bitcoin, but I don't think they'll go completely 100% into Bitcoin. The volatility is rather great, and I don't know. I just think people will still want to own real estate. Melissa, I have cheese and wine too. I will let Ellen know next time I see her. So, I'm not saying that Bitcoin is going to destroy real estate. On the contrary, it may even end up enhancing it, because there will be people that make a fair amount of money or that have made a fair amount of money off of Bitcoin. And at some point in time, they may want to diversify into something that's not as volatile, or just may want to diversify. And real estate, would be a target or beneficiary of that effort to diversify. So Bitcoin may even over time enhance real estate. Does cheese curls count? Yes, they do. I'll make it official. Yes, they do. So the thing about Bitcoin and this whole night is to try to stir some thought, some discussion, some ideas, kind of expand the understanding. Bitcoin is not for everybody. Not every investment is comfortable for everybody. And again, I'm not offering investment advice, just sharing with you some of my thoughts and perspectives. Bitcoin is a increasingly valuable asset just in terms of the growing demand and various applications. So I think it's important that people have a basic understanding of what it is, how it works, its advantages, its disadvantages, whatever. The critics get a lot of press. The applause is generally limited to the community. So I think it's important to, see and understand the whole picture. Some people tonight have listed some of the concerns. Don't know if I could keep up with the number, the private key. I don't think I can make money mining it. Again, you don't have to mine it to own it. You can set up. Remember that gold picture I showed you? Right down here, it looks kind of like a jump drive. It's actually kind of works. I mean, it looks like a jump drive, same size, but let me just call the site up here. I don't really know necessarily. There's the website. This actually is hardware that you can use to track, buy, sell Bitcoin or any other crypto, Ethereum, XRP, etc. So it looks like a jump drive and it plugs in like a jump drive, but it has software on it that you can use to enter your code. Once you enter your code, it's automatic. So you'll develop your own passcode, shorter passcode, or if you lose that, you can enter in your seed phrase to recover it. And this, accesses an exchange where you can buy, sell, trade Bitcoin. So you can take this with you, hide it, store it wherever you want, and access your account from any computer in the world. Much easier, quickly, safer. It's a great interface. It's very secure. And so that's what you see in that gold picture, is a little hardware wallet. Well, Sky, I appreciate you being with us, and thank you. Good night to you. May all your dreams be sweet, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon. We appreciate you. So, which one would you own? Which one would you rather hold? The future of Bitcoin, it is volatile, but it is going higher. Demand is growing. More and more countries are legalizing it, adopting it. As I mentioned, where it's banned, even in countries where it's banned, it still thrives. China has banned it 3 times. And here's an article just from earlier this year. Bruised by the stock market crash, Chinese rush into ban Bitcoin. Again, if you've got a flip phone, you can access Bitcoin. And demand is soaring in developing countries as well as developed countries. I feel very comfortable saying it's only going to get bigger. So it's not a fad. It's not a little quirk. It's not a Ponzi. It's not a little trend that's, going to fade or go out of style. It has, from all appearances, a pretty attractive future. All right. Anybody have any questions on Bitcoin? Anything I said that is confusing, doesn't make sense, please feel free to ask. Or email me, moffatonmoney@gmail.com. Twitter, you can DM me, moffatonmoney. If you haven't yet, would ask that you please, like, subscribe, do all the kind of YouTube-y things or Rumble things. It helps us grow the channel. Run a little long tonight. I very much appreciate your patience, and I hope this made sense to you. Jane, I'm about to do the same. Ellen's already headed that way. Sky's headed that way, and I think it's about time. Again, thank you all for being with us tonight. We do appreciate you. We do love you. Don't forget to vote if you haven't. We'll announce the chosen movie Tuesday night, and I hope to see you all then. Thank you, Melissa. And, as always, if any of y'all have any questions or something strikes you odd or doesn't make sense later, just let me know. Love you guys. Thank you. Hope you have a great rest of the weekend. Blessings to you all. Our time is up. We thank you for yours.